All right, the Bucks. It is talking Buccaneers with me, Fumane Musisinyane, before Kaizer Chiefs versus Orlando Pirates. Arguably the biggest rivalry in Africa, and I say arguably because certainly by history, this is the biggest game in Africa, the biggest rivalry in Africa, but not by recent history. Sadly enough, the narrative that we would rather have going into this one is that it were a game where Pirates and Chiefs were vying for the title. Both teams were vying for the title. We'd rather have that if Pirates loses this one, that jeopardizes their league campaign or their hunt for winning the league, or on the other hand. But for me personally, Pirates. I don't care if Chiefs are vying for the title. I think that team from Perfeni can be playing in the NFD for all I care. But yeah, for competition, I guess it's nice that if this were a derby where we're both vying for the title, and it just adds a bit of rivalry and heat and fire to it. But yeah, all is not lost. Certainly on the Pirates side, we know that winning this one is going to be important for us to get that CAF Champions League campaign. Yeah, I mean, both teams are 20 points off the top of the table, but really all is not lost. There's something to look forward to in this game. And yeah, if we win this one, we can get potentially be second, depending on whether Super Sports wins or draws their game. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we are a point or two behind Super Sport. So if Super Sport draws their game, we can be level on points if we win this one. So that's important for us to win. So there's definitely something to play for. And having listened to the coach in previous interviews, Jose Rivero, he spoke about he's looking to win every single game in the league that's remaining now. So yeah, I mean, there's something to look forward to in this game, if not just for local bragging rights, because obviously we never want to lose against the team from Pefeni. We always want to win this one. Yeah, sorry, I beg your pardon. So yeah, if it's not just for bragging rights, it's also that we are still playing for that second place in the Champions League, in the CAF Champions League spot. For Chiefs, I think they'll be more motivated because having come under recent scrutiny, if they win this one, they get to be level with us on points. So that's a big motivation for them. I think I can smell this one. I can smell Chiefs being dangerous for this one because they'll be more hungry than us. But yeah, just before I get into the game, yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. I know a lot of people that are watching our videos, and thank you for that. Yeah, I haven't subscribed yet. So obviously, if you subscribe, that helps us or that helps us on our side. But it also helps that when we put out videos, you get to find them. They get recommended to you, and especially if you like and if you comment. Yeah, so let's get into the game. I think the old adage says, that form goes out the window for this one. I've mentioned that in previous videos, especially looking forward in that Maritzburg game, that it's going to be a dangerous one because form goes out the window. So I know a lot of Pirates fans are actually excited for this one because Chiefs has been playing not well. They've not been on form. They lost their previous game against Golden Arrows in a manner that's quite embarrassing. So, but yeah, the old adage has it. A lot of players will tell you this. If you've played football, you know when you come against the, I suppose, the biggest team in the league or your biggest rivals, or if you've got a team that plays nearby, whatever level of football that you're playing at, even amateur level, you know that when you come against a team that's local and is your rival, there's a bit of a heat that comes into that. You are internally motivated. You don't need the coach or the occasion. Or sorry, you don't need the coach to motivate you, but the occasion itself, it motivates you a lot. And I think that's going to be the case in this one. A lot of form is going to go out the window. Chiefs are going to be very motivated for this one because of, I think, wanting to put things right. They've been on the media a lot. The director of football, Kaizer Down Jr., even the coach and some players have been speaking a lot in the media because of the scrutiny that they come under and losing games and just what's happening in that club. And so I think they're going to be very motivated. A lot of the players, and especially from the Chiefs side, have dreamt to be a part of this game. They will have dreamt to play in the Soweto derby. And I emphasize dreamt because a lot of them have less than five, appearances in this one. So it's going to be a big game in that regard. I think even in the Pirates side, we've got a few players, certainly more than five players who could be, if I think about who I think the technical team will want to line up to play in this one. There are a lot of players who might be having their first derby, but even if it's not the first, certainly less than five appearances in this game. So yeah, I mean it's gonna be big in that regard, in that there's gonna be that hunger, that want to, even you think about players like Ndlondlo, who seems like he's a star player in our team, even though a lot of the time he's not trusted to play in these games. But I'll get onto that. I'll get onto the formation a bit later in the video. But even he will be making his second appearance in the derby, if I'm not mistaken. He's only made one appearance against Sundowns in that game. In that game where we drew 0-0 in the MTN8. So he's still got that big match inexperience. And so I suspect there's going to be a lot of hunger, but especially from the Chiefs side, thinking about their form. And I think what's going to make them very dangerous is exactly that. They will want to Vugange Pirates. I'll use that phrase again, which I used in my previous video, if you didn't see that in the Maritzburg review game. They'll want to Vugange Pirates. I think this is set up for Chiefs to go on and redeem their season. Whereas for Pirates I suspect maybe there's not a lot of hunger. I think we're not playing for a lot at this point. And so I think certainly for Chiefs, that's what's going to make them dangerous. I think coming into this one, I feel like Chiefs are very dangerous. But having said that, though, I still do think that we've got more than enough as Pirates to win this game and win it very easy. I think what we need to do is exactly the opposite of what Chiefs are going to do, because I think what Chiefs will try and do is try and play at a very high tempo. They'll try and use the fans as their second wind. They'll try and be motivated by, playing the occasion, because the occasion itself is going to set up an atmosphere and a fierceness and a rivalry on the pitch to motivate the players. But I think what we need to do, and going back to that thing about experience, is that I think as Pirates especially, we've got a lot of players in our squad, at least, that have played this game. They've done well in this game. And I think this is where it's going to hinge for us. I think what we need to do is exactly the opposite of what Chiefs are going to do. I think we ought to not play the occasion in this one. I think what we need to do is we need to dominate Chiefs, and we need to dominate them on the ball. And it's going to be important who we line up, and I'll get to that in a bit. But it's going to be important because you think about players like Paseka Mako, you think about players like Innocent Maela, you think about players like Teminkosi Lodge, Vincent Pule, even Kemet Erasmus. These are players who have been there, done that. They've played these occasions, and they've played really well in them. Thinking about Lodge in previous seasons, he just loved the derby. He's just someone who loved the derby, and I think that's where we can kill Chiefs. Think about their attack. Obviously, they've got the likes of Dolly, whose form is also quite questionable for a lot of people. But yeah, we've got the know-how in our squad, and I think it's just about the mix with making sure that you mix the right hunger and the right know-how to kill off this game. I think what we need to do going into this one is to dominate the ball. I think we need to dominate the ball because Chiefs are very, very, very not good at in the midfield especially. I think what they lack is sometimes what I cry about, and I don't think we lack it because we lack the expertise and the know-how in the squad in terms of the players. I think it's because of the decisions that I always question that are made by the technical team in terms of lineups, in terms of things like that. I think a lot of the time we sacrifice on the ball expertise for energy and defending and things like that. And I think that's shown itself even in games where we were ahead, whether we're 4-0 up or 2-0 up, when we should have managed the game and killed it at 2-0. Think about the Maritzburg game. The substitutions that we make, I think that's something that we sabotage ourselves as Pirates. We'll bring on players whose first inclination is to defend. It's to protect the lead in terms of chasing and running, instead of getting players on who are going to keep that ball and make the other team tire them, pass the ball around, make them look for it, And I think that's where it's going to hinge for us in this game. I think we have to. I see a lot of Pirates players, and especially I'll come onto this, but in the midfield are saying that we need to not play Ndlondlo, or they're saying the coach is justified in not playing him in big games because he likes to hold on to the ball, and now and then he's made the mistake to lose it and things like that. And so maybe we need a bit of cover. So if you have someone like Tim and Munari in that midfield sitting, being safe, then we can go from there. We can build on from the solidity at the back and go forward. And I'm thinking, no, that's wrong. I think that's not right. I think that's exactly the problem. I think the problem is exactly, I beg your pardon, the problem is exactly that we don't go for teams. I think if you look at the standard bearers in our league, which is Sundowns, and I hate to be on this platform talking about them, but we've got to be on here talking about the league leaders who are setting a pace that is so ridiculous in our leagues. 5 league campaigns in a row, or that's what it looks like at this point. But you look at how brave they are. A lot of the time in the midfield, they played the Mokwena, who's somewhat of a box-to-box midfield, but he's the one and the only one protecting the defense. And they've got a lot of creativity around him. Marcelo Allende, they've got a Neo Maema and Temba Zwane in that midfield. These are players whose inclination is not to run back and defend first. And I think that's exactly what the problem is at Pirates, is we are thinking, oh no, play Tim and then play Munari, and then behind them play three center backs and then play wing backs as well. And it's like, well, how are we going to impose ourselves? Because going forward, then we lack the numbers. We lack the numbers in the box, and I think that's one of the other reasons, which I'll get onto when I start to talk about lineups. And I'm not trying to leave cliffhangers. I'll get to the formation in a bit. But yeah, I mean, in attack, I think one of the other reasons, because a lot of people are criticizing Erasmus in that, he's no output and things like that. And it's like, well, who do you have around him? If you have Munapule Saleng as the only creative outlet for Pirates, and creative in the sense that we just hoof the ball up front. Well, not hoof, but we pass the ball up front and expect him to create magic, which he does. And in all fairness, I love that about him. I have nothing critical to say about Munapule Saleng. I'm critical about our strategy in that it's unsustainable and in that it's wasting resources. We've got players who can supply Erasmus. We've got players who can supply the likes of Chukamanja, who's done well as well. And we just, holding them to ourselves and going, oh no, let's be safe. Let's make sure we keep the draw, keep the clean sheet, which we failed to do anyway. And go, and then maybe we can play Pule second half if we even think of playing him. And Lorch wasn't available. So you only had Erasmus and Zakele Lepasa and Munapule Saleng as our outlets. And then everyone is kind of like, their inclination is to defend. And you've got Otto on the left who's supposed to offer us something going forward, playing as a left wing back or as a left winger. We've been through that. I think it doesn't need me to be here talking about it again, in that Otto's amazing in what he offers in the playing that whole left flank alone. But I guess when we start to think about offensive output, and maybe that diminishes his output in that he has to cover that whole left flank. Maybe I think if you have someone who's going to be more creative in front of him, then you salvage that left side. But the left side, we know it's tame. There's no output that side. We've got output on the right. Definitely there's output on the right. If you've got James Monyani giving us the width and then Saleng being able to cut in, there's just a combination. And you might have seen that in the Sundowns game, especially the one that we lost 2-0. And that even though we played trash, in all frankness, and lost 2-0 to Sundowns, offering no sorts of threat, but there were still moments where you know that on the right, there's just something there. Someone's going to come in and the other person's going to go out wide. And if Monyani attracts the attention out wide, then that frees up Saleng. And it's a dynamic that I think we lack on the left. And so, coming on to the formations, I think we ought to start with a 4-3-3. Whether the 3 in midfield is a double pivot or a single pivot with 2 offensive midfielders, I think that's arguable and debatable, especially around Teton Ndlondlo, whether he should be playing as a deep lying playmaker in a double pivot with Tim or Munari, or as the number 10, as the creative outlet. I think for me personally, I want him to play in a double pivot. The reason why that is, I think if you've got Tim protecting him, and you've got Ndlondlo alongside. I think what you do with Ndlondlo when he plays as a deep lying playmaker is that you buy him a lot of time in that number 6. So there's not a lot of traffic. I think he's good at taking on players, at receiving on the half turn, but I think there are better players in that sort of thing, in the advanced playmaker role. So if you think about Lorch in the advanced playmaker role, I think he does it better than Ndlondlo. Even someone like Kabelo Dlamini, not in terms of output, but in terms of being able to receive in the channels, being able to receive on the half turn and have us attacking the opposition, facing the other direction, facing their goal. So I think Ndlondlo is better at, if you give him more of the deep lying playmaker role. He reminds me a lot of Santi Cazorla, and I'm not an Arsenal fan. He reminds me a lot of Santi Cazorla if you think about the Arsenal midfield of Coquelin, Cazorla, and whether it were Ozil as the number 10 or on the right, and then Wilshere ahead of them, or Ramsey or what. But Cazorla was more of like he had the license to come deep and collect the ball, help in the build up, and then if he sees channels and if he sees spaces where he can hurt the opposition, that's where you want him to go, right? Give him that freedom to roam around, but especially have someone to protect him and have someone ahead of him. Because if you give him the offensive role, I think that's quite limiting for what he can do in being smart and coming deep and collecting the ball. But if you give him the deep role as just like he's playing maybe in a midfield 2, like how we play when we play the 3-4-3 system, he's just in a 2, that limits him in going forward, right? So I think we should play with a double pivot of Tim and Monari with Ndlondlo, Tim or Monari with Ndlondlo, and then have someone like Lorch ahead of them, arguably even Pule. But I'll get onto that in a second. So then you can have Ndlondlo being able to dominate and then going forward and finding those, and he's got the protection, but he's also got someone like Lorch ahead of him whose sole responsibility is to be the creator, the chief creator, and then Ndlondlo just finds clever positions where he can hurt the opposition. Yeah, so I think we should play the 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. And on the left, so the left side, I want Marco to play there. I think it's obvious that the coach will not bench his captain. So that's obvious, right? He will not have his captain sitting on the bench. That's sad for me because I think Marco's the best left back in the club. I saw Mayela play at centre back in a 4 in the last game, and I think we should never do that again. He's better playing in a 3 at centre back, playing as the wide centre back. But if he plays as a 2, I think Oki was tasked with a lot of cleaning up for him because he doesn't win his duels, first of all, in the air. And I think he's just not got that centre back instinct. So when he's playing with Sbisi and Oki, which we should never do, I think we should never play with 3 centre backs because it compromises going forward. But when he's playing in that position as a 3, he's good, Mayela. Because he covers the left well. He's played left back. He covers the left well, and then he kind of adds numbers in the center. But I think just going forward, I want us to be brave and impose ourselves on teams. Play with a 4. Play with Marco on the left. Marco's very good at winning his duels. I think a lot of people maybe undermine him for his size. But I think he just proves everyone wrong all the time. He wins his duels. He makes clean tackles. And then he also offers us quality on the ball. And on top of that, he's got a good or a great combination with Lorch on the left. I think what we have on the right with James Monyani and Saleng, we can replicate on the left with Marco and Lorch on the left. So that would mean someone might have to play 10, maybe Pule, right, if you've got Lorch. But even if you have Pule on the left, I think his inclination is also to play more as a 10. He likes to drift infield. He's not a typical winger who hugs the touchline like Otto. And I think it becomes redundant when you've got Marco because he wants to do that sort of thing of going out wide. And then Otto also wants to go out wide. And then we lack people inside the channels, right? So if you've got Marco who goes out, Pule likes to come inside. He likes to play as a 10 anyway. He likes to come in, get his shots off, and play combinations. That's one other thing. I think Pule, Lorch, Pule, Lorch are just players that I think they just love the combination play. They will not beat a man and dribble and run past him like Saleng does on the right, which is great. But they like the 1-2s. And I think Erasmus, it thrives at that sort of thing. Erasmus will lay it off and get in the box. And then you've got someone who can return the ball to him, like we saw in the second half against, what's his team? All Stars, right? We scored both our goals by laying it off, getting in the box, cutting it back and scoring. I think if we had Erasmus in that position, Jugamanja was it Chukamanja who scored? I think Chukamanja, or maybe not Chukamanja. I think it was Loch and Saleng who scored. But if you got Erasmus in that sort of situation where you are laying it off, getting out wide, bringing it back, that sort of thing, we're gonna get the most out of Erasmus. So obviously, I think Erasmus should start this one if you've got Pule, Loch, and Saleng. And what I love about those three is that they can interchange positions. So Saleng can come inside, Loch can drift out right, or Pule can drift out right. Saleng come inside. Sometimes you can variate a little bit, have Saleng come to the left, and then Marco sit more at the back, or come in more inverted inside, because I think Marco can also do that sort of thing. He likes to run with the ball, whether it be infield, outfield, he's good at that sort of thing. Then variated with Saleng going out wide, creating that width, creating all those dimensions and all those problems for Chiefs. And obviously, I think Munyani should start on the right. I've already mentioned this. Shandu has walked off injured, but I won't be shocked if our coach plays Craig Martin on the right. I will not be shocked. It will be sad, but I will not be shocked. He might even play him at right wing back in a 3. I actually think that he's going to go back to the 3 at the back and 2 wing backs, and then playing 2 in the middle. And it could be that Ndlondlo will not see this one because he just doesn't trust him in big games. He might play Tim and Munari in the midfield if Musela is not fit, because we might also see Musela's return, even though he's been away for I don't know how long. Musela's not bad. I think he's just not the player to play ahead of Ndlondlo and Tim and Munari. I think maybe over time, but currently, and he's got the age on his side, which is brilliant. So he's got years to learn in that position. Yeah, and maybe take over from Tim, who does that marking role in the midfield. So yeah, I think he's going to play a 3-4-3, but I would have that 4-2-3-1, like I've already said, with Erasmus ahead of Loch, Pule, and Saleng, and then have a double pivot of Tim and Ndlondlo or Munari and Ndlondlo. And then left, obviously, I would have Marco, but I think he's going to play as captain. And then on the right, have James Monyani, who's back now, played 45 minutes against Maritzburg United. And then at goalkeeper, it's no argument. Sipho Shaina has done fantastic so far. He's conceded a few goals, but I mean, it's hard to be harsh on a goalkeeper if he's not conceding. He's not conceding the mistake like you will see with Ofori, who concedes goals that you think, oh come on, like you should have done something with that. So I think Shaine. It's very early right now to be certain about him, but he's definitely better than Ofori at this current point, and especially as a team that wants to build up, because he comes in and he becomes that sweeper, that's third centre back alongside the 2, and he steps in so the centre backs can spread wide, and we've got numbers upfield, right? We've got free man upfield to be able to build up better. So I love that about him. His distribution is quite okay. I mean, he's had these mistakes where he'll kick the ball out, but I think it's more of a case where our positioning in terms of the build-up has not been fantastic, or the opposition in all fairness has pressed us well, and so he'll kick it out because of a lack of options. But I think in terms of him or Ofori, I think definitely him. I think it's going to be a big game for him. Also, you want him to get those minutes and that experience in this game. And at centre back, I think definitely Koki has to start. Koki has done brilliantly. I think he's also a leader in that team, being the vice captain at the club. So Koki has done fantastic. I think now it's a case for me where Sibisi and Da are competing for the second centre back spot. If you ask me, I like Nda. I know he's been training and he might be fit for this one, or maybe not. So maybe we might see Sibisi and Koki in this one. But I'd have Nda and Koki, just because of how good and how we can break lines from the centre backs. So with Nda, you will break lines. You'll break that pressure from the opposition, from Chiefs, from deep, right? And then if you break that line and you find Ndlondlo, you can still break lines and get into that into the half spaces with the likes of Loch and Pule and Saleng. And that's what we need. I want us to dominate in this game. I want us to keep the ball. Chiefs are not good in the middle. They're just not good. They're not good at keeping possession. I just think they're not good at all. And so we have to dominate them. We have to show our class and our difference in class against Chiefs, and not be conservative and play with the 3-4-3 at the back and wait for counterattacks. I think that will be our biggest undoing in this one. But yeah, I mean, excited. I'll be at the stadium to watch this one. I'll try best I can to watch it with an eye so I can analyze and give you good material and a good analysis of what happened in the game, because I'll be doing the match reaction after the game. Hopefully that's going to drop on the same day, on Saturday, maybe in the evening. If not, definitely Sunday morning. So yeah, hopefully we beat the team from Pefeni. It's always a good weekend when Pirates beats Chiefs, because first you've got Pirates has won, so your favorite team has won, but two, the team that you hate the most has lost. Same day, same time. So that's what I'm hoping for. I know you're hoping for that as well. See you after the Chiefs game. Cheers. Up the Mighty Bucks.